Hello and welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Before we start with the practice questions for the day, we have an announcement. Byju's Exam Prep IAS is launching Mega Scholarship Program where you would be able to get up to 60% discount on our live online classroom program and offline classroom program. We have limited number of seats available, so this offer will be valid only till 30th of May only. So click on the link that is given in the description box. You will get a call back from our counselors. All that you have to do is follow the step and you would be able to avail discounts as well. Let's get started and look into the first practice question. With respect to alternative investment funds, which of the following statements are correct? AIF is any fund established in India which is a privately pooled investment vehicle that collects funds from sophisticated investors, both Indian or foreign, for investing. AIF includes funds covered under Indian market regulator SEBI's mutual fund regulations. Real estate funds, debt funds, private equity funds, funds for distressed assets, etc. are registered as category 3 AIFs. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is one only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to alternative investment funds, which is why we have taken this practice question. Let us try and understand what are these statements. When you look into the first statement, it reads AIF is any fund established in India which is privately pooled investment which collects funds from sophisticated investors, both Indian or foreign, for investing. Yes, this statement is right, where it can collect the money for the investments both from Indian as well as from the foreign investors for the investing. The first part is right. When you look into the second statement, AIF includes funds covered under Indian market regulator SEBI's mutual fund regulation. This statement is wrong primarily because AIF does not include funds covered under SEBI regulations of 1999. It does not include these funds. And when you look into the third statement, there are three types of categories in the AIF. What we have is the category 1 AIF. What we have is category 2 AIF. We also have the category 3 AIFs as well. When you consider the category 1 AIFs, it basically includes angel funds, SME funds, social venture funds, infrastructure funds, so on and so forth. When you consider the category 2 AIFs, it basically includes debt funds, private equity funds, funds for the distressed assets. So what we have mentioned here is in reference to category 2 AIFs and it is not category 3 AIFs. When it comes to category 3 AIFs, it basically includes hedge funds, pipe funds, so on and so forth. Since this statement is speaking about category 2 funds and not category 3 funds, the third statement is also wrong, which is why this answer would be one only, that is A. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements. Angel tax is levied on the capital raised by a listed company by selling shares to investors above the fair market value. An entity will be considered a startup up to 10 years from the date of its incorporation and registration, and an entity will continue to be recognized as a startup if its turnover for any financial year since incorporation and registration does not exceed 100 crore. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Indian Express makes a reference to angel tax as well as the startup, which is why we have taken this practice question. Let us try and understand what are these statements. When you look into the first statement, angel tax is levied on the capital raised by an unlisted company. It is not a listed company, but instead it is an unlisted company. So the first statement is wrong, and such an angel tax is imposed on a startup. So according to income tax rules, a startup can be a company or a limited liability partnership engaged in all those business activities which basically involves innovation, development, deployment of new products, processes as well as services. So a startup's paid up capital should generally not exceed 10 crore, and the entity will be called as a startup for up to 10 years from the date of its incorporation, and at the same time if it does not exceed 100 crore. So the second statement is right, but the first statement is wrong because it should be an unlisted company. So what is this angel tax? Let's say for example, we have one of the startup companies. The startup companies will require huge amount of investment that needs to be pumped in as well, but not many would want to invest on this particular company. So there is a person who owns the capital, he would want to invest, he would want to take some risk as well. So this person who is investing in this new company, he does not know whether it will become a profitable company or not, but he invests because he is the person who is investing in the startup. He is called as an angel, and if this particular company gets the money from the angel, so the tax that is imposed on this money is what is called as the angel tax. So if there is an unlisted company and this unlisted company is selling shares to its investors above the fair market value, that tax that is imposed on this startup is what is called as the angel tax. Now let's look into the next practice question. Herschel Island, that was seen in news recently, is a part of which country? Argentina, Australia, Canada, Mexico. The answer to this is Canada. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Indian Express makes a reference to Herschel Island, which is why we have taken this practice question. When we speak about Herschel Island, it is an island where in the Beaufort port, which is part of the Arctic Ocean, it is Yukon's only offshore island and it belongs to Canada. This can be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. This article here is speaking about the permafrost. What is this permafrost? It is that particular ground that remains frozen. So we have a piece of land, it happens to be a ground that remains frozen for at least 2 years straight is what is called as a permafrost land. So basically those permanently frozen grounds are most common in all those high mountains. In Earth's higher latitudes, it can be on the northern poles or it can also be on the southern poles. So what is permafrost? It is that piece of land or ground that remains completely frozen at 0 degree and anything less than that for at least 2 years straight is what is called as the permafrost land. What is permafrost made up of? Permafrost is made up of a combination of soil, rocks and sand that are held together by the ice. So on the top what we have is the active layer, then what we have is the ice wedge, and this particular part is what is called as the permafrost. How does climate change affect the permafrost? As the Earth's climate warms, so we have increasing temperature, the permafrost is thawing, which basically means that the ice inside the permafrost melts. It starts turning into water, leaving behind water and soil at this particular point. So when permafrost is frozen, it's harder than the concrete, but when it is thawing, these permafrost can destroy houses, roads as well as other infrastructure. When permafrost is frozen, there is plant material in the soil called as the organic carbon. It cannot decompose or rot away, but when permafrost thaws, microbes begin to decompose in this particular part. This process also releases a lot of greenhouse gases as well, and ultimately carbon dioxide as well as methane is introduced into the atmosphere. And when permafrost thaws, so do the ancient bacteria and viruses that are present in the soil. They also become unfrozen microbes, and this could also make humans and animals very sick as well. That is what this article on the Indian Express speaks about. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements are incorrect? The right to protest is recognized as a fundamental right. The right to peaceful protest is included in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of the United Nations. Which of the statements are incorrect? Since it is asking for the incorrect statement, the answer to this is none. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article here speaks about the right to assembly. It also speaks about right to protest as well. Do note, the right to protest peacefully is enshrined in the Indian Constitution, where One, what we have is Article 19 of 1 of A. The other, what we have is 19 of 1 of B. 19 of 1 of A basically speaks about freedom of speech and expression, and at the same time, what we have is 19 of 1 of B, which allows all the citizens to assemble peacefully without arms and also voice out their concern. But when it comes to the right to protest, we also have reasonable restrictions as well. Let's say, for example, to ensure the security of the state so that it is not in jeopardy, that can be a reasonable restriction. If public order is disturbed, that can also be a reasonable restriction. Then we have the contempt of court. This can also be a reasonable restriction. Then we also have sovereignty and integrity of India, which can also be a reasonable restriction under Article 19 of 1 of A as well as 19 of 1 of B. Why do we have the right to protest? That is because we all live in democracy. There might be a law, there might be a particular policy initiative that can be taken up by the government. But if this particular law is not satisfied to the people's feelings and they feel that this could harm their livelihood, they can come and peacefully protest as well. So this right to protest is very crucial in the democracy where there is participation of the informed citizenry in the governance of the country. This basically enables direct participation, and ultimately they become the major stakeholders in the governance of the country. So right to protest, yes, is a fundamental right under Article 19 of 1 of A and 19 of 1 of B. So the first statement is right, and the second statement is also right. The right to peaceful protest is included in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of the United Nations. Now let's look into the next practice question. Two important rivers, one with its source in Jharkhand and known by a different name in Odisha, and another with its source in Odisha, merge at a place only a short distance from the coast of Bay of Bengal before flowing into the sea. This is an important site of wildlife and biodiversity and a protected area. Which one of the following could be this? The answer to this is Bhitarkanika. This is a previous year question from the year 2011. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion happens to be ONDC. ONDC stands for Open Network for Digital Commerce. Let me simplify this process so that you understand what is this Open Network for Digital Commerce. We have the UPI that was introduced by the government of India. What exactly happens? Let's say you go to a grocery shop. There is the QR code that is put up. You only have phone pay, or you might have Google Pay, or you might have Paytm. What exactly happens, irrespective of which digital tool you have, what you would be able to do is you have to scan the QR code and you would be able to pay. So all that we have is a digital openness, which means irrespective of which application you own, you would be able to pay that particular grocery shop. So what is happening in the digital commerce? Let's say, for example, we have Amazon, we also have Flipkart as well. This is closed loop digital commerce, which means to say, in case you want to buy a particular product on Amazon, you would be restricted to buy that particular product from Amazon. So whatever products that are available on Amazon will only reflect on Amazon itself. What if you want to buy a product on Flipkart? You should be restricting yourself only to Flipkart as well. So in the open network digital commerce, what we are trying to introduce is an open network when it comes to the connectivity, which basically means you have the buyer who will become part of this particular platform, the seller will become part of this particular platform, you also have the logistics sector which becomes part of this particular program. So what happens, you have a particular product that you are looking for, you happen to become a buyer, I am a buyer, you are a buyer, there can be another individual who is a buyer. So we enter this open network digital commerce network. So as a buyer, let's say you're looking for an iPhone, or let's say you are looking for a laptop, or let's say you are looking for a book that you want to buy. So in all these cases, you being the buyer, you come to this open network and you ultimately put out your request. And once you put out your request, what you will also have is this particular company which is also wanting to sell that particular product as well. We also have the gateway which is acting as a bridge as well. So the minute you have the request, so the request from the buyer will go to the gateway will interact with the seller and all the sellers on the platform. It can be Flipkart, it can be Amazon, it can be any other application as well. They immediately start showcasing their product. So you as a buyer would be able to buy this particular product from Flipkart, Amazon, or any other service provider on the basis of your requirements as well as cost. So in this particular platform, it is not an independent platform, which means you need not have to restrict yourself only to Amazon or Flipkart, which is a closed loop transaction. But here all these people are available. So you have a particular product, so this particular product can be brought from Flipkart, Amazon, who are all part of this particular network. So on the basis of your requirement, on the basis of the cost, you would be able to procure this particular product. What if there is a product which you would want to buy, but then that particular company does not have the logistics? In this case, there can be a new company which is a logistic based company which can also procure that particular product from the seller and deliver it to you, who is the buyer as well. So we also have the logistics which is provided under this application. So all that we have is a buyer who wants to buy a product. Then what we have is a gateway which will immediately respond to this request. It will send it to other platform service providers, which happens to be the seller, and they would be able to give you the product. If there is no logistics provided by that particular company, we will also have the logistics sector which immediately steps into picture. So the ONDC will basically have the buyer side applications, seller side application, adapter interfaces, gateway, as well as open registries all come under one single platform, so that you would be able to procure your project at a cheaper price. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this topic. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.